every pain leaves a mark, not just in your memories, but deep in your nervous system. In this chapter, we uncover how trauma rewires your brain and hijacks your emotions. And more importantly, how you can take the power back. This is Chapter 2 of Rewiring the Mind, the psychology of spiritual healing. And this might be the chapter that changes everything.
Chapter 2: Trauma, How It Shapes the Brain and Spirit. Trauma is not just an event that happened to you, it's also what happens inside you as a result of that event. Whether trauma came from abuse, an accident, war, loss, or any situation that overwhelmed you, it leaves a profound imprint. This imprint is both psychological and physiological, affecting the brain's wiring, the body's stress response, and even one's spiritual outlook on life. In this chapter, we'll explore how trauma reshapes the brain and can fracture one's sense of meaning or spiritual identity. The aim is not to dwell on the hurt, but to truly understand it, because what is understood can be healed. With knowledge, you'll see that trauma's effects, while deep, are not irreversible. You can rewire what trauma has twisted, and later chapters will show how. The brain on trauma, survival mode. When you experience a traumatic event, your brain kicks into survival mode. The amygdala, an almond-shaped part of the brain critical for processing fear, fires intensely. It's like an alarm bell blaring, "Danger!" to your entire system. Trauma can cause the amygdala to become hypersensitive, even long after the actual danger has passed. This is why people with trauma, like PTSD, often feel jumpy or anxious for reasons they can't always pinpoint. Their brain's alarm system is on a hair trigger. In fact, brain scans of trauma survivors show an overactive amygdala, meaning their fight or flight response lights up even in safe situations. The result? You might experience panic at a sudden sound or overwhelming anxiety in a crowded store because the brain is, mistakenly, sensing threat everywhere. Meanwhile, another part of the brain, the hippocampus, is trying to make sense of the experience. The hippocampus helps form and retrieve memories and also puts them in context. This was then, not now. Trauma disrupts this process. Forming clear memories. This is one reason traumatic memories can be so fragmented or feel like a haze. The brain's memory filing system got overwhelmed. A shrunken hippocampus also means you have trouble distinguishing past from present triggers. For example, if you were traumatized by a flood, even a bathtub overflow could send you into panic as if the flood is happening again. The brain hasn't properly filed flood as a past event, so each trigger dumps you back in the emotional reality of that trauma. Trauma also dulls the functioning of the prefrontal cortex, the rational, decision-making part of your brain right behind your forehead. The prefrontal cortex is like the wise leader that can calm the amygdala and say, "It's okay, that was then, this is now." But trauma can temporarily knock this leader offline. During a traumatic event, and even later when recalling it, the prefrontal cortex often underperforms. This leads to difficulty in regulating emotions, thinking logically under stress, and controlling impulses. You might know logically that you're safe now, but still feel in danger. That's because the amygdala, emotion, is screaming while the prefrontal cortex, reason, is struggling to be heard. Essentially, trauma creates a brain state where fear and chaos dominate over calm and order. In summary, trauma can rewire your brain into a persistent state of alarm. The amygdala is jumpy, the hippocampus doesn't record memories properly, and the prefrontal brain loses some control. These changes can manifest as symptoms like hypervigilance, always being on guard, intrusive memories or flashbacks, emotional numbness, and difficulty concentrating or making decisions. It's important to emphasize that these reactions are not your fault. They are your brain's way of trying to protect you after trauma. Knowing this helps to remove any shame or stigma. You wouldn't blame yourself for bleeding after being cut. Likewise, there's no sense in blaming yourself for anxiety or nightmares after psychological wounds. Trauma literally changes the brain and body to prioritize survival, even at the expense of your peace. But as the next chapters will show, the brain is capable of changing again, this time in positive ways, to recover and grow. The wound to the spirit, trauma and meaning. Trauma doesn't only affect the brain's circuitry, it can shatter your worldview and spirit. Many people describe a traumatic event as a rupture in the narrative of their life. One day you felt the world was generally safe and life had meaning, and the next, that sense of safety and meaning was torn to pieces. It's common and completely human for trauma survivors to struggle with spiritual questions. Why did this happen to me? Where was God, or the universe, or fate when this happened? Am I being punished? Or how can I ever feel hope or trust again? These questions show how trauma can shake the very foundations of one's identity and beliefs. In some cases, trauma can lead to what psychologists call spiritual struggle or negative religious coping. For example, someone might feel abandoned or betrayed by their higher power. How could a loving God allow this? Or they might feel deep guilt, shame, as if they are spiritually tainted by what happened. Others may withdraw from any spiritual practice that once comforted them, feeling a loss of faith. This spiritual distress often amplifies trauma's impact. It's an added layer of pain. Studies have found that people who report this kind of spiritual struggle after trauma tend to experience worse mental health outcomes, including more severe PTSD or depression. It makes sense. If you not only have trauma symptoms but also lose your lifeline of hope or meaning, the darkness feels even thicker. On the flip side, many trauma survivors find that their spirituality becomes a crucial source of support. This is often referred to as positive religious coping. Rather than feeling abandoned, some feel carried by a higher power through their hard times. They might derive strength from prayer, feel comfort in the idea that their loved ones are in heaven, or that there's some greater plan, or simply find solace in spiritual community. Having a framework that this suffering has meaning, or I am not alone in this, can buffer the effects of trauma. Remarkably, positive spiritual coping has been linked to better post-trauma outcomes, including lower distress and even post-traumatic growth, a phenomenon where individuals grow stronger and develop deeper life appreciation following trauma. For instance, some veterans, after the horrors of war, have said that their faith gave them a sense that their sacrifices had a purpose, or it helped them seek forgiveness and release guilt. What determines whether trauma leads to spiritual struggle or spiritual growth? It's a complex interplay of personal beliefs, community support, and the nature of the trauma. The important thing to know is, both responses are normal. If you felt furious at God or fate, that's a valid response to pain. If you felt closer to the divine or more spiritually awakened after trauma, that's also valid. There's no right way. But one of these paths clearly promotes healing more than the other. Part of rewiring after trauma may involve gently shifting from the former to the latter, from feeling spiritually broken to spiritually open. Integrating trauma into your healing journey. Understanding trauma's impact on brain and spirit sets the stage for healing. Here's the empowering truth. The changes trauma causes are not permanent deformities. The brain can be calmed and rebalanced. The spirit can find meaning and connection again. The fact that trauma rewires you means that through therapy, mindfulness, and spiritual work, you can rewire back toward health. For example, effective trauma therapies, like EMDR or trauma-focused CBT, actually show measurable reductions in amygdala activation and improvements in prefrontal function as people process and release traumatic memories. In spiritual domains, practices like meditation or loving-kindness prayer can help soothe the soul's ache, gradually replacing despair with hope. We'll get to those healing practices soon, but right now, consider this chapter a kind of map of trauma's effects. If you see yourself in any of these descriptions, jumping at sounds, feeling numb, questioning the meaning of life, know that you are not alone and not crazy. You're a human being who went through something intense, and your entire being has been trying to cope with it. The symptoms and struggles are evidence of your strength. Yes, strength, because they show you survived using the tools your body and mind had at the time. Now, you have the opportunity to upgrade those tools. One powerful step in healing is to begin reconnecting with a sense of safety in the present moment. Trauma made your body feel unsafe and your world seem unsafe. In the next chapters, practices like meditation and mindfulness will directly address that by training your brain and body to relax again in the here and now. You'll also learn to care for that hurt inner child, the part of you that still carries the fear and pain, with compassion, which can restore your spirit. But before that, let's do a brief exercise here, at the close of the trauma discussion, to help you reclaim a bit of power from trauma. Practice. Reframing the trauma story. This is a journaling or reflection exercise to gently start shifting how your trauma lives within you. Its goal is to take a step back from the overwhelming emotions and consider the story you're telling yourself, and then to rewrite it in a way that supports healing. Set aside a safe, quiet time. Make sure you feel relatively calm. If thinking about your trauma is too intense right now, you can skip this exercise. There is no pressure to confront everything at once. But if you feel ready, have a notebook and pen or a computer to write with. Identify the core beliefs. Gently ask yourself, what did I come to believe about myself or the world because of this trauma? Often, trauma plants negative beliefs like, I am powerless, I'm broken, the world is dangerous, I can't trust anyone, or it was my fault. Write down whatever comes up, even if it's painful. For example, you might write, I believe that I am not safe anywhere, or I believe I'm unworthy of love because of what happened. Acknowledge the feeling. For each belief you wrote, note the emotion it carries. Does I am powerless make you feel sad, angry, frightened? Simply observe and write the feeling next to the belief. This separates the belief, a thought, from the emotion, a feeling. Just this act is rewiring. You're engaging your conscious mind to observe the turmoil, which is a step out of the whirlwind. Question the belief. Now, for each belief, is this 100% true all the time? Usually the answer is no. For instance, I am not safe anywhere. Is that entirely true? Perhaps you are safe when you're with a certain friend or in your bedroom, or at least safer now than when the trauma happened. Or, I'm broken. Are there really no parts of you that still work or feel joy? Maybe you're a caring parent, or skilled at your job, or you still appreciate music, evidence that you're not fully broken. Write down any evidence against the absolute truth of each negative belief. This isn't to deny your pain, but to loosen the grip of black and white thinking that trauma often causes. Reframe the belief. Here, you actively rewrite that narrative. Take the original belief and reshape it to a more balanced or positive truth. Importantly, this new statement must be believable. Don't force fake positivity. For example, original, I am powerless. Reframe, I was powerless during the trauma because it was out of my control. But today, in this moment, I do have some power. I can choose whom to trust. I can learn tools to protect myself. I am reclaiming power by healing. Another example, original. The world is completely dangerous. Reframe. The world contains danger, yes, but it also contains safety and support. I will seek out the safe spaces and people. Not every situation is the same as my trauma. Write a reframed statement for each belief. It may help to imagine you are speaking to a dear friend who went through what you did. How would you lovingly correct their harsh beliefs about themselves? Offer that kindness to yourself in writing. Affirm your courage. Finally, acknowledge the strength it took to even think about all this. Write a sentence like, I survived that, and that means I have strength. Or, working on this belief shows I am healing. This is true. You are facing what happened, which is incredibly brave. After doing this exercise, pause and breathe. Notice if you feel a bit lighter or more in control. Even if hurt or sadness is present, Also notice the part of you that is witnessing all this. That part is your resilient self, the one that will carry you through healing. Reflect. How did it feel to rewrite your story in a more empowering way? Which new belief is hardest to accept? It's okay if some part of you still clings to the old, negative beliefs. You've practiced them for a long time, after all. But each time you challenge them, you chip away their power. Healing is a gradual process of replacing the trauma-driven story, I am helpless, ruined, alone, with a truth-driven story, I am overcoming, rebuilding, worthy of love. Remind yourself that both truths can feel real inside you for a while. With practice, the positive one will grow stronger. Having understood trauma's imprint and taken initial steps to reframe its story, you have a foundation for the work in later chapters. Next, we turn to one of the most powerful tools for calming the trauma-affected brain and cultivating inner peace: meditation. Meditation is more than just relaxation. It's a way to consciously rewire the brain's responses and tap into a deeper well of healing. In the next chapter, we'll demystify meditation, look at the science behind it, and guide you through practical techniques to start your own meditation practice for healing. You've learned why trauma makes your mind race and your heart ache. Now let's explore how something as simple as breathing and focusing your mind can begin to soothe those responses. Meditation awaits, and with it, a chance to reclaim calm and safety from within.